right, let's talk about the dreaded urges or cravings, however you want to call them. So, an urge or a craving is a feeling that you get in response to a sight, a smell, a sound, or anything else that kind of triggers you to want to take action without thinking. Urges are totally normal brain reactions to anything that gives us a reward in the form of dopamine in the brain. So every time you do something that causes the release of dopamine, brain gets reinforced that whatever it is you did is something that you should definitely do again. So, for example, if you're at work and a colleague has a candy dish filled with your favorite candies, you'll probably have an urge to take one and eat it as you pass. The more times you do that, the more your brain is wired to make that an automatic thing. It's basically like, see, candy, we must eat it, we must get the dopamine. And you can think of it kind of like a toddler. Toddlers see things that they want, and if they don't get it, they can throw a full on tantrum. And this is basically what an urge is in your brain. And there's some good news and some bad news with that. The bad news is that the urge is going to make it as tempting as possible for you to take the action that you don't actually want to take so that that toddler brain quiets down and you don't have to feel that urgent feeling. The good news is you don't have to buy into the urge. You don't have to take it seriously. It can't force you to do anything. And even though it feels like it, you don't have to take action. And the key here is separating that feeling, that urge, from the action that you take. And then you practice over and over again. So, when you have an urge arise, there are three things that you can do with it. The first is to resist it. And this is the choice that most people make. The moment you feel an urge, you feel resistance in the body, often there's tension. You can become hyper focused on either bottling it up and suppressing it or ignoring it altogether because it's a feeling that you've been taught is not something you should be feeling. It's bad, right? But when you resist it, that's where you also need to use willpower to overcome the urge. And that's what makes this the most challenging. Willpower will deplete itself over time. And the more decisions you make in a day, the less willpower you have. And at a certain point, you'll probably just give in to the urge and take action and eat whatever it is that you want, that you're craving. Resisting the urge only serves to help keep it there longer. And it's kind of like trying to ignore somebody who has walked through your front door. The more you try to ignore that person, the more that person is going to try to get your attention. And the same is true of emotions and feelings that we resist. You don't have any power over it if you resist it. All right. The second thing that you can do with an urge is avoid it. This involves removing any hint of a snack from your house, staying home, never going to gatherings or celebrations or anything like that again, never going out to eat again so you're not tempted, right? As you can imagine, this becomes kind of a drag because you never actually learn how to control yourself around food. So when you finally do agree to go out to dinner with friends, you find yourself eating the whole plate of nachos that's put in front of you before your food arrives. Not the best option, right? The third option, and the one that I'm going to recommend, is allowing and processing the urge. You may be asking yourself, wait, like, wouldn't allowing the urge be the exact opposite of what you want to do? But think about it. Resisting the urge requires a supply of willpower. That's not reliable. But if you allow the feeling of the urge and separate it from the need to take action, that's where your power steps in the form of your adult brain, right? It does take practice. It does not feel good. And you're going to be very bad at it at first. But it's work worth doing because it allows you to learn how to control your actions when you have feelings come up in your body. It won't matter where you are or what you're doing because you'll be able to control yourself without using force. Okay, great. So, how does one allow and process urges? The first thing you need to do is to stay present in your body. The moment that urge comes up, it is not a feeling that you want to stay. It's not what you want to feel. Brain immediately wants you to bail, right? But I want you to stop and open yourself up to it. Get really curious about the feeling that you're feeling. Notice what physical sensations happen in your body. Maybe you've got a tugging feeling in your stomach. Maybe you've got tingles in your arms or butterflies, right? It may be helpful to say, this is what an urge feels like. And just notice what sensations you're physically having while that's happening. And as you sit there and wait, notice that you can feel this urge without taking action on this urge. You can sit there and just allow it to exist in your body. Now, the whole time, especially at first, brain is for sure going to be there saying, we can't be feeling this. You need to eat the thing right now. It's right there. Just go grab it. It's fine. Right. You're going to have all kinds of permissive thoughts about, like, oh, well, I'll start Monday. Right. Or whatever it is that brain comes up with to make it okay to take the action that goes against what you actually want. That's okay. Let brain say whatever it wants to and still know that you don't have to take action. You don't have to believe it. As you allow these sensations to happen in your body, I want you to let the urge stay for as long as it needs to. It will stop, and probably faster than you expect. Now, remember, when you start doing this, brain is not going to know what to do. It's probably going to freak out because every time it has pressed this urge button, you have felt the urgent feeling and you have responded just like an obedient puppy, right? So, urge comes up when there's candy. Oh, sweets are there. Oh, urge, right? Chips and dip. Yeah, definitely urge, right? So your urges might feel more intense for the first few tries. That is totally normal and totally expected, unfortunately. But there are some thoughts that you can try on that can help you move through these urges without acting on them. One of them is, what if I just let myself feel like this for another 30 seconds before I take action? Isn't it crazy how urgent this feels? It kind of allows you to disconnect from your body and what you're feeling and, like, really think about the feeling, right? Another thought is, almost every time I've felt this, I have just blindly obeyed. No wonder my brain presses this button every time because it knows that I will take this action. Another one is, it's not true that I don't have control. I can find the control even during this urge. Now, the more you practice allowing the urges without acting on them, the more your brain will separate the sensation from the action, and the easier it will be. So, think about how many times you would be willing to experience an urge if you knew 100% that if you did, you would rewire your brain, you'd be able to reach your goal weight, and you'd be able to stick with it indefinitely, right? Would you quit after feeling 5 urges if it didn't work, if you're still having these cravings, right? Would you quit after 50 times, or would you be willing to experience it 500 times if you knew that at the end of those 500 urges, you would be at your goal weight and you would be feeling amazing, right? It doesn't seem like that big of a deal when you put it in perspective like that. Luckily, it doesn't take 500 times to rewire your brain, but it will take more than 5. And I want to suggest keeping an urge tally. So when you feel like you have an urge, allow it, let it pass, and then give yourself a mark. So every time you feel the urge to overeat or have an unplanned snack or raid the candy dish or eat all of the appetizers that were brought out at your restaurant, allow the urge to exist in your body without acting on it, and then give yourself a tally mark. Or you can use a jar and put something in the jar, right? Maybe a marble. But if you act on the urge, nothing gets taken away. There's no punishment. You just don't get another mark. If you do this consistently, it is impossible to get to 100 allowed urges without having your brain rewire itself. When you consistently take that dopamine reward away, brain will stop giving you that urgent signal and you won't have to deal with urges nearly as much. But even then, you'll know that you can handle them and you can stick to your goals. No problem.